What to do if you fall in love with a girl? How to distinguish crush from passion, love from addiction? Opinions on the internet are divided into two camps. Some say, if you're suffering, if you're in pain, then it's not love at all, but just addiction. And others put the equal sign. They say it hurts. You really want to be with this person? Well, then you definitely love. But in fact, in my opinion, everything's a little more complicated. Each of us has a certain proportion of passion, that is dependence, and love. This proportion within the relationship is capable of changing. That is, everyone can remember a situation when at the very beginning of a relationship you wanted a woman irresistibly much. It seemed that forever. But a little later, the interest subsided. And it happens on the contrary, when he treated a woman very calmly at the very beginning. After a while, for example, she decided to leave or began to lose interest, create problems, and suddenly an aggravation occurs. That is, the significance begins to move up. And in the first and second case, of course, we're talking about passion. Conclusion. Each person has an individual proportion of passion and love, which is activated depending on the situation. Emotions and hormones shape our way of thinking. That is, the passions disappeared, well, it means not quite my person, not quite the right woman. And it would be better to end the relationship with her. Passion arose, escalated. Well, I'll find 1,001 arguments why even low-grade relationships need to be saved. As a rule, a person sincerely believes that this is a conscious action that doesn't depend on emotions in any way. That is, he's weighed all the pros and cons and knows exactly what he's doing. It's not true. In general, people love mysticism and explain their emotional state with some otherworldly bullshit. Just imagine, you live for yourself, you work in some office, and then you meet a girl. You don't follow the cause and effect relationships. You just suddenly start wanting her irresistibly much. Although, this is trite due to the fact that she turned you down, stood up, or at first she got close, flirted, hit on you, and then distanced herself. And you start sitting, listening to music with headphones, imagining how you walk in the park by the hand, how you fly together on vacation. You already imagine how you walk her dog. And the person begins to attribute this phenomenon to some divine providence, to fate. Here's my betrothed. The meeting wasn't accidental. Why is that? Because the man didn't control emotions, and they themselves happened like a flash. Moreover, the rational explanation of all these processes has no power. You can sort of even understand that it's just hormones and stuff. But actually, on an emotional level, it's a miracle for you. A miracle happened. Oh, I've changed. I became different all of a sudden. I look at the world differently now. Everything's so bright, everything's so interesting. That's the main thing, now to meet her. If we don't meet, then it's not so bright. But it doesn't matter. It's important that it's good now. A person becomes an ordinary stoner and writes it off as some kind of mysticism. Who's an amorous person? This is a person who has a lack of internal discipline. That is, instead of controlling these feelings, he blindly indulges it. You know, I grew up in an area where there are a lot of junkies in my environment. And absolutely any district junkie could bring a whole philosophical dogma on why it's not harmful, why it's possible, how it helps him. And of course, at any moment, he'll certainly quit. That's the same here. In the rush of this passion, it's impossible to reason with the person. You need to be a very courageous person to at least admit the fact of addiction. An amorous person, a person in whom passion prevails, dominates, as you understand. This person, as a rule, is selfish, who's able to be faithful, sensitive, grateful, only under hormonal anesthesia. That is, if a woman is crazy about you at the beginning of a relationship, or you're ready to move mountains for her, all this isn't proof of great love. It's like getting stoned before strength training in the morning and then working hard in the gym, just sweating. That is, there are two people. Outwardly, they do the same thing. They're engaged in the gym. Only one does it on the strong will, and the other one because he's high. Well, we have to understand, it will stop hitting you one day, and then what? And I'll tell you what's next. Have you seen such profiles on a dating site when a girl writes, I want to fall in love, but it doesn't work out? That is, instead of getting spiritually stronger, becoming more disciplined, capable of relationships, she has already managed to shake her dopamine system so that she can't even get stoned. A person can't fall in love, a person can't get stoned anymore. In general, if we talk about all this romanticization of relationships, this isn't always the feeling that we ourselves are trying to twist. It's also important to say about this. It sometimes comes by itself. We indulge it. That's exactly the same way a belch happens. It comes in a conversation with someone, but the person restrains it, right? So as not to seem indecent, not to show disrespect during the conversation. We restrain such urges. And as for falling in love, men usually don't restrain it. But on the contrary, they're waiting for it, like, oh, I fell in love. A man perceives this day as a holiday, begins to share with friends, saying, friends, there's such a thing, I seem to have fallen in love. Really? Let me give you a hug. You're finally one of us now. And then, nothing good can be expected from this person. It seems that he talks about it so much, so festively, so interestingly, saying, finally, I've been waiting for this moment. Meanwhile, you just mentally say goodbye to the person. It's like you're saying to him, okay, let's have a goodbye. You don't expect him to talk to you adequately in the next couple of years. The things that love is a skill, you need to be able to love. This isn't some random, sudden, uncontrollable outburst of emotions. Love can be shown in everyday life. For example, when we can help someone and make a donation to someone. And psychotic men direct all this exclusively to a woman. Love is only a woman. They find a certain victim and are ready to pursue her and still rejoice in it. Men who succumb to love psychosis, they're encouraged by society, by the way. You get down on one knee, you take care of her beautifully, you pursue, and it's supposedly very beautiful, very aesthetically pleasing. Now, if a woman does the same thing, and someone finds out about it, then everyone will immediately side-eye at you. What did you do to the girl? Have you no shame? An interesting moment. Pickup artists, they try to get rid of the romanticization of relationships, like to see the light, but continue to depend on dopamine. That's why they constantly need new women and new acquaintances. It turns out that on one hand, we have a romantic psychotic who suffers because of love, considers himself amorous and very kind. He makes a deity out of a woman in order to get dopamine through her alone and relationships with her, perhaps even family relationships. And on the other hand, a pickup that has seen the light, in quotes, which has known this life. He gets dopamine not through the one woman, but through many. The pickup man believes that this loving psychotic, he's a fool who knows nothing about women. And the psychotic man thinks the pickup man hasn't known love yet. These two groups are very sympathetic to each other, and in fact, they do the same thing. Under beautiful slogans, they break their lives for the sake of a buzz. Here, just the other day, an adult writes to me in such a solitude and says, Maxim, in general, there was a big message. Interest in my wife has subsided, the relationship isn't the same, but I have a mistress. Then there was a huge rubbish on the topic of the relationship with his mistress, and at the end, the most interesting thing, he writes, I understand from your videos, Maxim, that you don't know how to love, and I need to get my mistress back. Can you give some advice? I almost lost my speech. I have a wife, children, yes? I don't look at others, I don't have mistress, I treat them well. Not because it hits me, but because I decided so. I thought it was love, wasn't it? You know what I was thinking at that moment? So the orderlies come in. Take the patient to room 6, quickly. How's the 6th busy? What? There's a pickup artist. Then to the 7th. Well, how can you confuse warm with soft, right? Have you ever thought that all the brightest, kindest deeds people do under the motto of love, in the name of love, right? Well, the same thing happens with dirty infidelities, betrayals, divorces, lovers. There are also people talking about love. I cheated because I fell out of love. I cheated because I fell in love with someone. I'm leaving because it's wrong to live without love. This is a powerful technique for self-deception. Talking about love is endless speculation. After all, it's very easy to justify yourself and say, well, it's wrong to live with an unloved person. You cannot order your heart, and therefore I can create dirt. What do you mean? What kind of nonsense are you talking now? Well, I feel like this. You won't go against yourself. I want to. Oh, well, if you want to, okay. There will be no demand from you anymore. In general, I like to work with romantic psychotics because they can be helped. It often happens that a man himself didn't understand how he became addicted. There was an adequate person. But figuratively speaking, they began to pour something into his tea imperceptibly. That is, the woman simply began to provoke the release of hormones. By her behavior, he didn't understand what's happening, and gradually his picture of the world was distorted. Here's even one-time experience of sick relationships in which there were quarrels, drama, separation, reconciliation after that. Infidelity can turn a healthy person into a psychotic. But, as I said, it's possible to work with it. But the pickup is an ideological junkie with whom it's pointless to work. If we talk about people who dream of falling in love, to choose such a person for life is a crystallized madness. You know what's interesting? I noticed is that such people have only two modes. The first is to worship, to knead to tears, to tremble in the body. The second mode is to devalue, to fall out of love, and there's no intermediate option here. It's very tempting to think that if I'm ready to make sacrifices at the moment of addiction, then I definitely love. Here it's very difficult to admit that this self-sacrifice is fake, because if you're ditched, if you're abandoned and left, then you do it with a passing benefit, because you need to curry favor, appease like a brownie to get nice things. Sometimes a woman directly tells a man that, I don't want anything from you. And how does a man react? No, you want to. Take the bouquet, take the gift, I'll wait at the entrance, I'll text you. He's ready to strangle her with his so-called love. And what does she think at this moment? In general, it doesn't matter. I really hope that he'll agree. I remember myself in this state about 12 years ago. If someone had dared to say to me then, bro, you don't really love her, and this is just an addiction, I probably would have had a fit of rage. I would have torn my shirt. There would have been a protest. Look at what I'm willing to do for her. Look how bad I feel. Well, now it seems to me that it's already obvious to everyone that love, it should imply kindliness. Do you know what I would have said to myself 12 years ago? I'd say, Max, if you're talking about love, then find a girl, even if not so flashy, bright, but kind and pleasant. And in relation to her, apply all this enthusiasm. She deserves it much more than this schemer here. I would probably scratch my head and say, well, it sounds logical, but I want her. So that's the point, that love implies giving, caring, gratitude of my own free will, because I decided so. Love cannot be forced. It's a product of my decision. I can do whatever I want, but I do well with a woman. My consciousness isn't clouded. My will isn't deformed. Good deeds in such a state, in such a situation are frankly not very easy, but only they are real. And when you meet a person who shouts that the main thing is love, will live for it, know that by love such a person means anything. Some personal desires, adrenaline, dopamine addiction, lust, romanticization, anything but love. There's no smell of love here at all. There's another popular scenario of how smart and talented men break their lives, but not always far-sighted. A man wants to find a muse who can inspire him. And to inspire, which is important, it's logical, you'll agree, only that woman who doesn't completely belong to you at the level of sensations. If a man gets 100% transparency, submission, respect, then there will be no motivation to do something, to strive somewhere. And you just need to forget about a strong position in such a relationship. It doesn't imply this. Yes, indeed, at a short distance, it can work. You constantly stimulate your hormonal system. It helps you to do it. You squeeze all the juices out of yourself, but just let yourself know that there will be a sad ending someday. A naive man believes such a young lady won't leave him because he's so promising, or if she leaves, he'll quickly find a replacement for her. But in reality, men, as a rule, after such a relationship, find themselves in a deep hole from which there's no way out. That is, you suddenly don't understand why you need to earn money. Why go to the gym? Why strive for something if she's not around? Therefore, if you think that you'll become the second Elon Musk, if some muse inspires you, then don't be surprised later that you'll lose everything, even what was before the woman. And even if we talk about some exceptions, the muse inspired you and everything's fine. Think about what you have in life. It's just two options, either this woman or nothing. Because everything you've done for her. Your whole fate depends on what her mood is today. So I'd compare, it's like a colossus on clay feet. Blow, and it will fall down. If you've already decided to start the practice in order to study the topic of relationships in more detail, deeply, and get access to the closed course, the link's in the first pinned comment. I recommend starting with the course What Women Are Like and the Master of Online Dating. Thank you all very much for watching.